What are we discussing on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast? Well, we're 1 month away from spring training, so let's take a look at the latest FanDuel odds for World Series, division, and discussing who's taking home the big awards. And of course, to join me today, it's a crossover. So we got Locked On Padres host Javier Reyes to break it all down.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook, because new customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. And speaking of FanDuel, we're breaking down all the FanDuel odds, division, World Series, awards, MVP, Cy Young, and to help us discuss all of that information, none other than Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. Let's bring him on the show. Uh-oh, who's that?
He's here.
Whoa.
With a haircut, everybody, finally. So yeah, I just wanted to be dramatic. What's up, man? Excited to talk odds as always. Because I'm weirdly excited for this one, because we're gonna just straight up just talk about our division, especially because I think that, and obviously, there's still free agents to go around. But I will say it doesn't feel like there are more. I mean, you never know with the Dodgers, I guess, but it doesn't feel like there are free agents that will be signing with teams in our division right now. It doesn't feel like the big ones will be
not
like
the top tier ones.
Not the top tier ones, right? Like, so yeah. I don't think Pete Alonso or maybe Flaherty. I could see him as like a fit for like San Fran, maybe. But even still, I don't think there's going to be a big one. But even still, obviously, we got to preface that things can change.
Flaherty to San Diego, maybe? What about Flaherty to your team? Man, I can see him as a little number 3, number 4.
Hey man, the team literally just said they're fielding offers for Michael King, so I'm not exactly expecting. I'm not exactly expecting a splash thing, unless the bad PR is getting to the Seidler Bros, undeserved or not. It's wait and see. We don't know really if there's a bad guy, bad gal in the situation, as I talked about on my show. If anybody wants to go check that out on Monday or Tuesday. But yeah, man, this is just a chaotic division. As I always joke, it would be really cool if other divisions tried, because apparently the NL West is just like, we'll take all the big players, we'll make all the big moves, and it's at least it gives us something to talk about.
Yeah, that's interesting. If the Padres are really fielding offers for Michael King, who's coming off a great season, might talk about him a little bit later when we do the Cy Young Award odds. But that's interesting. The Padres might be trading like one of their best pitchers, because as we get into this conversation, Javi, we're going to be starting with the division odds, because obviously the Dodgers are going to be favorites to win the NL West, minus 490. That's not a shock. That's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is, you're telling me the Padres might be in a position where they're selling off their best players, but yet you look at the division odds, they're plus 600 to win the NL West. D-backs plus 1,100. So according to the odds, it seems way more likely that the Padres, who have yet to make a move this offseason, who you even say might trade away their number 2 starter, Michael King, but yet they have way better odds to take the division than the D-backs, who are adding Corbin Burns. Yes, they lost Christian Walker, brought in Josh Naylor, still talking about how there's still a long road to go this offseason in free agency in terms of adding talent. Why do you think FanDuel has the odds set up that way? Or is it just because, I mean, the Padres fan base is incredible. I love going out to San Diego for those games. It's just because the Padres fans just juice up the stats, you think?
I think that, as I hold my little Tatis guy, I think what's really hard about the odds things is, sometimes you don't know if Vegas knows something. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't know if or they don't and they haven't adjusted properly, or like you said, there's just a little bit of a Padres thing, because
there could be like a trade waiting in the wings for the Padres or something that's like on the horizon.
They're a sexy team, so it's hard to evaluate. Like, maybe people are saying like, oh, like we're gonna go crazy on D-backs or vice versa. So I mean, sports books are always a little bit complicated, but I'm with you, dude. I don't understand why you could see, based on what we've seen this offseason so far, why the Padres should have better odds. That's basically entirely predicated on 2023 or 24. Right. This is a team that was 1 win away from the NLCS. They had an incredible season from basically all of their role players. And Fernando Tatis Jr. didn't even play at his MVP level. And there's no reason that suggests he declined or anything like that. He got a little bit unlucky with some ground ball data, all that sort of stuff. He got hurt. So like all that considering, well, why wouldn't they be great? And they still could be great. There's no doubt that they could still be good. It's just that my thing would be this. How many times do you remember ownership turmoil and players being on the market and you not adding anyone that a team ends up being great, right?
Not too many cases like that.
Yeah, it's like it's one thing to have like the Bill Simmons Ewing theory where like you lose the best player and for some reason inexplicably you do better. Like guess what? Padres were like that last year. This year it's like this is a team that's I don't want to say penny pinching. It's more complicated than that because they still are top 10 in payroll. They still are a $200 million team, but they still haven't made too much of an impact. They did sign Elias Diaz though.
Okay, did they? I like Elias Diaz. I was shocked when he got cut by the Rockies.
It was weird. That is a player who has combined for negative 0.7 wins above replacement according to Fangraphs over the last 3 years. Granted, that was because of one egregiously bad year. It was negative 1.5, which I didn't even realize was like possible for a catcher. Like I don't know how you could be that bad, but or 1.2 it was. It at least means that okay, we're not going to be going in blind. Before that, the only move they had made was Martin Maldonado, who's actively terrible. So Elias Diaz seems like good clubhouse presence has been helpful. So it at least means that they aren't rolling with Luis Campusano 100%, right? Like at least you have a little bit of something there. But I'm just looking at this team, man, and it's still possible they're great. It very much is. I think that their top level goes easily pound for pound with the D-backs. My problem is the rest of the depth. What happens behind Darvish? You have King, Cease, and Darvish. What happens behind that? You haven't addressed that. Can Ruben Niebla, their pitching coach, get something out of your Matt Waldrons and your Randy Vasquez's? I have optimism for sure, but I don't like that you don't really have a left fielder. Tirso Ornelas is probably what's going on here. You lose Jurickson Profar. You lose all these players, and it feels like a lot of their offseason was banking on Roki Sasaki, and we've talked ad nauseum about that, so we don't have to here. But
yeah,
I don't know, man. The D-backs were one of the best offenses in the league last year, and they're getting Merrill Kelly back. They're going to have Zach Gallen. They added Corbin Burns, one of the most surprising signings of the offseason, right? Probably of the last 10 years, one of the most in general.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I just really like your team, man. Like, I'm not just saying this because I'm kissing your butt or anything. I think that their team is great. I think Ketel Marte is great. Even if Ketel Marte declines, which is, I think, one thing I would declines in the sense that he really had a career year. Right?
Yeah, he had a career. Season. It's okay. Yeah, he can if he replicated that season again, like he's on track for like the Hall of Fame all of a sudden. If he has more seasons like that, like he's undeniably one of the best second basemen in like the last 5 years. Is anywhere close to that?
I can't see any position that you're lacking. Alec Thomas and you have Jake McCarthy as like a bench player. That guy was worth 3 wins last year. Like he could play really well. And then Burns, Gallen, Merrill Kelly, and I still like their back end options a lot more. I still think Jordan Montgomery can have some value. I still think Eduardo Rodriguez can be good, right? And combine that with a bullpen that hopefully can at least just be better than last year. Obviously the AJ Puck, the Ginkles of the world. I just don't see a flaw in the team right now. They're in a position where maybe they just add some depth. The Padres, it's like we don't know what's going on left. Catcher's still weird. We don't know what's happening with the back of the rotation. And frankly, the vibes are just really bad. Right? Like it's just the vibes are bad. Jurickson Profar said it himself. The ownership thing is a problem. And I don't know if that'll get resolved before the season. Maybe it does. But either way, I think that history doesn't usually bode well for teams having this type of offseason turmoil.
Yeah, like I'm not even that upset that the Padres are above the D-backs in terms of the odds being closer to win the title. I just feel like it should be more of a coin toss. I just feel like everything we saw from both of those teams last year, they were just so neck and neck throughout the season. Once the second half started, it was like, which team from, of the non-Dodgers team do you think is going to go farther? Like I remember seeing that every day on MLB Network. Who do you like better for the postseason, D-backs or Padres? Like that was always like fun conversations. I just feel like it should be a little bit closer, especially when you see how these two teams have developed this offseason. But when looking at the rest of the NL West, I do kind of like the Giants. I don't think the Giants could win the division, but if you just want good value, plus 3,500 is not bad at all. And then the Rockies at plus 50,000. I don't think we think their chances of winning the NL West is too high, but hey, maybe someday, Rockies fans, hold out your hopes. But the division odds I think are a little bit low for the D-backs, but checking in on the World Series odds, maybe they get a little bit more respect there, but maybe they don't. We'll check in on those World Series odds for both the D-backs and the Padres in segment number 2. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. FanDuel is the app that is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay. Whenever the Suns are playing, give me KD over on 25 points, give me Booker over on 25, and give me the Suns money line. When it hits, which is not very often, it brings a big smile to my face. If you want a big smile on your face, just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks, Locked On Padres crossover. Just looking at the NL West division odds according to FanDuel. Of course, Dodgers overwhelming favorites at minus 490. Got the Padres at plus 600. D-backs at plus 1,100. Now we're moving to the World Series, and I felt like the D-backs were a little disrespected when looking at the NL West odds, but they might be even more disrespected when looking at the World Series odds, because I'll just read you the teams ahead of the D-backs. Dodgers, of course, the favorites at plus 250. Then got Yanks plus 750, Braves plus 900, Phillies plus 11, Mets plus 12, Orioles plus 14, Astros plus 21. Then your team tied with the Astros at plus 21, Rangers plus 24, Mariners plus 26, Red Sox plus 27, Twins plus 29, Cubs plus 3,000. And then finally tied with the Cubs and the Detroit Tigers is the Arizona Diamondbacks, sitting in the middle of the pack, essentially couple years removed from the World Series, led the league in runs scored last year, 89 wins, a great run differential. And despite all that, everything they've done the last 2 years, adding arguably the best pitcher on the market this year, having a deep rotation, a great lineup, a GM and ownership that's committed to winning. And despite all that, we're still tied with the odds of teams like the Chicago Cubs, whose owner just went out there recently and said, hey, guys, we want to spend money in the offseason, but do you know, we're just trying to break even out here. I think we're pocketing the money. We're just trying to break even. But yet they're tied with the same odds as the D-backs and Ken Kendrick, who is saying, look at us spend money every offseason when we're good. Guess what, guys? It's going to go back into the team. So I just think it's insane that the D-backs are tied with these teams who are clearly not even trying to win at the same level as the D-backs and don't even have the recent success of Arizona as well. So I just felt like the D-backs were a little disrespecting the World Series odds. Obviously, the Chicago Cubs are a super fan favorite team, so I can understand them. But the Minnesota Twins plus 2,900? Come on.
Yeah, that was my team that stuck out, because I will say the Cubs, while the ownership isn't trying, which usually means you're not going to, they have made a lot of moves. They just traded for Ryan Presley,
solid.
Kyle Tucker. It's okay. I actually don't like their rotation that much. I'm worried. I'm a little bit worried about it, but they've added a lot. And Pico Armstrong could be a nice breakout player. Seiya Suzuki quietly is very, very good.
Their team isn't bad.
It's fine. My issue was with some of the other teams, specifically the Twins and the Mariners.
Yeah.
That was when I was like, I just haven't seen Minnesota do anything. Frankly, I don't think they've done too much this offseason. Yeah. I understand the thinking of, we're going to have more American League teams only because the path to the World Series could be easier. There isn't the overwhelming juggernauts. I think that like 4 of the best 5 teams could be in the National League this year, right? I think
the NL's, we need to do like conference power balance. The NL feels heavy right now on that balance scale.
And I think that's why people are like, are the Yankees unbeatable? No. And they're the favorite team, right? And I just don't feel like that. Dodgers, you're like, You got to go through them. You got to go through Philly. You got to go through the Mets. You got to go through the Braves, who, by the way, we might be overthinking this. It might just be the Braves to lose this year because literally every player underperformed on that team last year except for Chris Sale. I doubt that happens 2 years in a row. Oh yeah, Marcel Ozuna. My apologies. My apologies to the guy who loves hitting the catchers with the bat. Apparently, it's just that silly goose. Yeah, I agree with you on that. But Twins was the one for me. And frankly, just forgetting the American League thing for a second. Oh, what? So the Mariners added Donovan Solano. I'm supposed to think that that their offense is going to finally click. I don't know. I get it though. That pitching is like dangerously good. Like a little disturbing how good their pitching is. Like their 5th starter is probably the number 2 on the Padres right now.
The Orioles are 6th. Corbin Burns came
No
to our
way.
team. How are they plus 1,400, number 6 in World Series odds, when they let their best talent leave out the door like every single offseason? If you're not under a rookie
They didn't
contract
add anything.
in arbitration, they do not re-sign you and pay you at all. Like, I don't understand.
Sure, you bring in Tyler O'Neill. I love Tyler O'Neill. I think that was a really smart gambit.
Yeah,
He could be better than Santander, but you lost Santander, right? So you're kind of like replacing a guy and then hoping he's better, which he very well could be. Would not surprise me if Tyler O'Neill has like a 4.5
Yeah,
season.
a value in terms of value might be better than Santander, but still, you're letting 40 plus home runs like the last 2 years as a walk out the building with your number 1 starter.
And if you do that, that's fine. But then your only move can't be Tyler O'Neill. Your other move should be re-signing Corbin Burns or signing Jack Flaherty. And again, they could. It's not over. The offseason isn't over yet. But I'm just like, I don't see it. So yeah, I'm with you. It's a little bit low. I just think this D-backs team is crazy. And considering that Corbin Carroll had the ultimate sophomore slump, Corbin Carroll like could be a 7-win player. Like that wouldn't surprise me. He's really, really, really good. And I think he figured out whatever was like his swing was just off and whatnot. He's a 5.4 win player in 23. It's his rookie season, right? Like, and he was 4 last year. I could see it happening. I think he could be just as good as your Julio Rodriguez or your Fernando.
Ooh, you know what? That could be a great segue right here, Javi, to talk about maybe the NL MVP odds, because both of our guys is on the top 10 list when looking at Corbin Carroll and Fernando Tatis. But I do think something's a little bit interesting, because I'll just say the top 6 in odds for the listeners out there. Ohtani's the favorite, as he should be, because he's coming back to probably pitch this season. So not a surprise, plus 180. Juan Soto, plus 550 now in the National League. Fernando Tatis, plus 800. Mookie Betts, plus 1,300. Kyle Tucker on the Cubs, now in the NL, plus 1,400. Then Ronald Acuna Jr. back at plus 1,700. And just looking at this, I found it the biggest thing that I had a problem with, probably from looking at the MVP odds. Corbin Carroll's at plus 4,500. He is 3, 6, 9. He's like 13th or 14th on the odds. My biggest issue, the 2 people in front of Corbin Carroll in terms of the odds, is your guy, Jackson Merrill, and then the other rookie from last season, Jackson Churios. Neither one of those guys, actually, I don't even, neither one of those guys won Rookie of the Year, which Corbin Carroll did as a rookie. And then Corbin Carroll also finished top 5 in MVP voting. I know he had a little bit of a down season this year, but you're essentially telling me you think 2 guys who didn't win Rookie of the Year are more likely to win MVP, despite the Rookie of the Year who finished 5th in MVP voting the year prior. Like, I just think Corbin Carroll's getting a little disrespected. And I love Merrill. I love Jackson Churios. I think those are 2 superstar players. I just think right now, from what we've seen the first 2 years, I think Corbin Carroll should be a little bit higher in these odds.
So it's funny because you say that one of my favorite odds picks would be Jackson Churios plus 4,000.
Really?
I think this guy is an absolute like train, like rolling down, like I don't even know what analogy I was going for there. I just think he's an absolute
down
beast.
the hill.
I really do. I think he clicked in the second half for him. I think he has I just think he could be that good. That being said, do not bet on this. You know why? Because it's Shohei Ohtani is going to win the MVP. Yeah, because it's so his to lose. American League MVP is more open, but if you're pitching and hitting, the accumulation of all those stats, barring anything, right? You know, knock on wood, happening injury wise, I just don't see it. Like, unless for some reason National League hitters just hit well against him when he's pitching. And also, Frank, I guess you can make the argument that maybe the Dodgers get to a point where they don't want him to pitch too much. So maybe he doesn't accumulate as much volume as he did before. But as a long shot, I don't mind Churios. But I agree. I mean, we just saw what happened with Corbin Carroll his second year. It's not like it's impossible for that to happen to Merrill. Frankly, I think Carroll should be higher than Ketel Marte. I think that he should be higher than than Freddie Freeman. I just think it's really hard for a first baseman to win MVP. I could see it. I could see Corey McCarroll figuring it out. He's just a really well-rounded player. And unlike other sports, the team's success doesn't usually parlay into MVP stuff. So as a result, like I would be interested in Kyle Tucker, right? If that was something that played a part into it. Just be the one guy, you bring him over. He's got to help this team's offense that struggled. But I think overall, it's going to be Ohtani. So I would have bet on it. But yeah, I think your boy's a little bit low. A little bit
now.
low.
I kind of want to flip it the other way on you. Do we
Mhm.
think your boy might be a little too high in Fernando Tatis? I think if you're telling me he plays 155 games and he's fully healthy, I'm fine with that. The issue is he had the PED suspension and they had 2 years of being, I mean, he didn't play and then he had 2 years of barely playing because of injury. So you look at the last 3 years, the availability is not there and he wasn't as good post PD as he was pre PD as well. So it's like, I do think Tatis, if everything clicks, he can win MVP or at least finish second to Shohei Ohtani. But I think from what we've seen the last 3 years, it's not fair to like the Lindors, the Mookie Betts, some of these, the Ronald Acuñas, Ella De La Cruz, like some of these other guys who have been there, available, and have produced way more at a higher consistent level the last couple seasons. I love Tatis. Maybe it's the fact that it's like that star power. He's still one of the most fun athletes in the league. But I feel like the baseball writers and like the perception of him is like higher within like the baseball community than maybe like outside fans sometimes, like outside San Diego maybe. I don't know. Sometimes I talk to like my baseball friends. I feel like they're not as high as Tatis, that like as high as I am probably personally, like watching him every day. So I just want to know, do you think your guy might be a little bit too high after what I just said?
He's kind of having a tiny bit. Now he's more cool because I think he's just had more moments, especially playoff wise.
He's one of the coolest players. Yeah.
I think he's reminding me a little bit of Vlad Jr. And what I mean by that is Vlad Jr. had that unbelievable season and it's just been really good, right? Really good player. But we're like, when's the like, I was told this guy was Miguel Cabrera. And in the case of Tatis, I was told this guy is Griffey. So we're kind of waiting for the redo of the 2021 season. I think it's fair. I think the reason he's still high up there is just because a lot of people are betting him because all the underlying data. Like this guy hits the ball harder than basically anybody, still 135 WRC plus. And while it didn't work out as much last year, the numbers weren't there. This guy's won a platinum glove out of nowhere in 23, right? So I think that's what it is. I think it's the defensive stats. And it's just so possible that once he gets there's too much underlying data with him, I think. But it's also true, right? I just think everyone's like, you know what, it's too talented. But it reminds me of Vladdy. And that could be a good thing, Padres fans. That means that Vladdy, low-key, was really good last year, especially after he got his haircut. Fun fact.
Yeah, he was a monster.
He had a 200 WRC plus from June 19th onwards. Like, pretty unreal, and it went to waste, but still, like, it was great. So I could see that. But Tatis being third, I'm wondering if he's third because if you put him lower, everyone would bet him, especially because of the fame and stuff like that. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I don't know exactly how the sports book is.
I do love the Vladdy call, though. I do love the Vladdy comparison. That's a lot of fun. I know we've had some conversation where we've been like, "Oh, is Vladdy like overrated?" I don't know.
He's too
So
talented.
maybe, but then we came back around. We were like, we wanted to see it though. We were like, because we were having those conversations. We're like, it's been a minute since Vladdy was that dude, right? And so it's like we need Tatis. Like we still think Tatis is super talented. We just want to see him be healthy and get back to that level because I think at the end of the day, it's probably health for him is like the biggest X factor.
Also, randomly, speaking of underlying data, I don't think it'll happen. But if you're just like you're living life on the edge, O'Neal Cruz plus 12,000. I know it sounds ridiculous, but he's moving to the outfield. Tatis, remember how that played out? And he hits the ball harder than Tatis and harder than basically anybody. I think he's going to be very good this year. He's a guy that I recommend everyone checking out in fantasy as a flyer, not necessarily for MVP. But again, if it's just a pie in the sky. I don't know, man. I love the talent. I love the talent. And also this could be a Byron Buxton thing where we never see it come through. But I like O'Neal Cruz still, man. I really do. I think that guy's a freak. But I don't know if he's ever going to reach it.
Yeah, well, speaking of the Pittsburgh Pirates, we all know which of those Pirates is going to be favorite for the Cy Young next year, which we'll discuss in segment number 2. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant just for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and it helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions or your spending habits or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of over $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks, Locked On Padres crossover, just discuss the MVP odds for the National League according to FanDuel. But now let's look at these NL Cy Young Award odds. And of course, Paul Skeens, by far the favorite, plus 260, as he should be. But let's just go over like the top six, I guess, because you got Zach Wheeler plus 750, Blake Snell plus 800, Chris Sale plus 1,000, Corbin Burns plus 1,600, then Dylan Cease plus 2,100. I think the biggest thing when looking at the National League Cy Young odds, if you look at the top 13 guys, I believe 7 of them are in the NOS. It's Yamamoto, it's Glasnow, it's Snell, it's Cease, it's Corbin Burns, it's Michael King, it's Logan Webb. And then at like number 16 is like Zach Gallen, who's like right outside the top like 13, 14. Like the NOS is loaded and mired in this NL Cy Young odds because Padres rotation, D-backs rotation, even the Giants rotation, like every outside the Rockies, like this is a pitching division. I think that's like the biggest development over the last few years when you've seen the Giants go out there, add Robbie Ray, add Jordan Hicks. You look at the D-backs, add Monty, add Erod, add Burns. You guys are trading for pitchers to fill out the back end of the rotation. The Dodgers, all they're doing is signing star pitcher after star pitcher. I think that's like the biggest development that we've seen in the NL West the last few years. The advent of like this switch in perception of let's go away from offense and let's really build these rotations that could really slow down and stop anyone. And I wonder if that's a formula that we're just going to see more of going forward from like the other teams around Major League Baseball once they start learning, hey, those NOS squads, they're kind of the smartest teams around when it comes to building a squad for the playoffs.
Yeah. Man, it's so funny looking at that. This is why I make the joke, like, can another team please try? Let me tell you, the odds for this are, I like so many of these pitchers. It's Cy Young is so hard because like you have, yes, you'll have chalk sometimes, like Garrett Cole won the 1 year, right? Like for the American League. National League is really weird though. It seems like there's just a ton of good pitchers here. I could make a case for Yamamoto. I think he's one of the 3 most talented. And remember, the reason why he didn't have the best season is just because he wasn't pitching. Like he got hurt, right? You have that kind of situation playing out. Glasnow, I don't trust him to stay healthy, right?
Yeah,
like I just don't. And I think the Dodgers are going to manage him a little bit. But you telling me you can get Spencer Strider, who was the number 1 odds guy last year, according to FanDuel, at plus 2,600? I like that one a lot. And I also, Shohei Ohtani at plus 3,900. I wouldn't do him only because of what we said earlier, that I don't know if they'll need him to pitch. So I could see them being like, chill, we'll just throw out Tony Gonsolin or whatever today. But there's so many guys here, man. And this is just
still
one of those.
Interesting. How about Rookie at plus 8,000? Like, why not? He's gonna be the number 4, number 5 starter. He's gonna have like no pressure on him. Like he's gonna have the greatest offense behind him. Like Rookie can just go out there and dominate. Like there's gonna be no tape on him really. Like who knows?
Logan Webb. I think he's a top 5 pitcher in baseball, and he's just not a fun one because he doesn't get as many strikeouts. But Pat Bailey behind the plate, that helps a lot. You know what I mean? Like that's going to make him super annoying to bat against. So I could see Logan Webb. I don't know. Maybe the Dodgers guys cancel each other out. That's possible. But the Spencer Strider one is
You like that? It just depends how much he plays this year.
It
Like,
depends on how much he plays, I understand, but that's
yeah.
pretty wild, man. I mean, Justin Steele's really good, right? And then there's some guys here that, like, at the end of the year, if they make that leap, it
Mhm.
wouldn't surprise me, right? Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Jared Jones finds himself
Yeah.
making a leap. It wouldn't surprise me if someone like maybe not Mackenzie Gore. That was a little bit far, but Kodai Senga maybe has a really good year. This is a tough division, man. This is
Yeah.
like a tough award to go for, but I'm just saying, like, that's so crazy that you could get some of these guys that low. Like, it's kind of a pick 'em, honestly. But Skeens also has the
He's probably gonna win it.
opportunity to just be the best pitcher we've seen since Kershaw. Like, it could just be that simple. So
And I think if I was to like just do like a random dart throw, I think it would probably be on one of these really good starters who's in a loaded rotation, who's like the number
mhm,
2 or number 3 guy, like the Michael Kings,
mhm.
like the Zach Allens. Like, don't give me the best pitcher in the rotation. Give me the mid rotation starter who's still elite, but doesn't have to be elite. Could take a little pressure off themselves. Like, I want to see Zach Allen as that number 2 this year behind Corbin Burns. They've already talked about like that competition that they're going to be having with each other. And they're going to be at the Waste Management Program next week playing a little golf with their manager, Tori Lavello. So, hey, if you're in Phoenix, go check that out either Tuesday or Wednesday, I believe. Last thing before we wrap up here, Javi, because we're starting to run late, let's look at some win totals. My team is projected 85.5 wins, which again, I think is flat out disrespect for a team that won 89 games, led the league in runs scored, won 84 just 2 years ago when they went to the World Series. It's okay, neither here or there. And then your Padres, 87.5 wins. Are you pounding the over or under on both of our teams?
I am slamming the over on the
On
D-backs.
both?
I just
Okay.
think they stumbled last year. And by the way, part of the reason they stumbled is because they signed Jordan Montgomery late. Now, that I think is a little bit of a product of Scott Boras. Eduardo Rodriguez, same thing. Merrill Kelly gets hurt. Corbin Carroll has a sophomore slump. And then they figured it out. And then all they did was add. Gabriel Moreno might be even better this year. Like I said, the fact that Jake McCarthy is the 4th outfielder on this team is insane. This guy would be a starter on the Padres tomorrow. I would trade a lot for him, right? Like, I just don't understand what people aren't seeing. I understand Montgomery was a mess, but you really telling me that Jordan Montgomery, a guy who the whole pitch around Jordan Montgomery was just, he's a steady starter, right? He's steady. He's just a guy that you don't want him as your number 1, but he's just going to be a steady dude. This is a dude who had an ERA last year of 3.2. Year before that, 3.48. The year before that, 3.83. You're telling me he's a 6 ERA guy now? No, he's not. Anything that they get from him, if he's a low 4s ERA, that plays. That's going to help this team win games. Only thing I'd be worried about maybe is just a little bit of the bullpen, but otherwise they're super complete. 85.5 is a little bit low. And like you just said, they won 89 last year. The only big thing that happened here is they lost Christian Walker, but at least you got a really nice power bat and Josh Naylor. And I kind of like Jordan Lawler as like a lottery ticket prospect guy. Maybe he could do something with this team. You know more
4th
than
and
me.
Rookie of the Year voting. Or
Yeah,
odds,
man. Like, I could see something happen there. And then if it doesn't, guess what? It doesn't matter. We have Geraldo Perdomo, right? Like, we have a guy who's just solid, plays good defense. Jerry. Like, everywhere I look, except maybe a little bit the bullpen, it's a complete team. It's just a totally complete team, and I think no one's talking about it. I do not understand 85.5. Padres, a lot of it is, it's possible that Tatis just goes nuclear. It is.
Mhm.
It's possible that you get a 5.6 win season from Merrill and an 8 win season from Tatis. That's possible. Crazy numbers. And that alone would make them probably match or go over the 87.5. But I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I think I would go under on them just because I just don't think it usually turns out well when you have the ownership stuff. I don't like it. Also, let's say they start poorly. At the trade deadline, they might trade Michael King,
Yeah.
which will mean that their win totals will go down. They might trade Robert Suarez. They might trade Dylan Cease maybe. Like, at the trade deadline, if they are, let's pretend they're 8 games below 500, especially with all the uncertainty, they might just have a little mini fire sale. Obviously, they can't trade Tatis and Machado, guys like that, but that impacts the over-under, and I think that's something to consider. Yeah, man.
Wow.
I also have some others, though, if you don't mind me running through them real quick, just for the curious people out there. Some other ones I like, A's 70.5, I'd go over.
Oh.
I think that they have some decent young talent, right? Brent Rooker signed an extension with them. They brought in Jeffrey Springs. They brought in Luis Severino. And 70 is just always like low. So you're always like, you're just hoping for the minimum there. I could see it. And by the way, they won 69 games last year, right? And that's without the additions. And low key, the A's, while they are a mess at the top, decent organization for finding talent, all things considered. So I could see that. And they also have this other player that was really good, who was actually lurking in the MVP odds. I don't know if you saw him. It wasn't Brent Rooker. It was, let me see if I could find him really, really quickly. Lawrence Butler.
The MVP. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
okay,
Lawrence Butler. Lawrence Butler had a really good season for them, and they're going to get even more from him. So I could totally see them just being better than 70 wins, right? Other ones, Cardinals, I was ready to slam the under, but 75.5 feels right. I could see that being a team that trades away Sonny Gray, potentially like at the deadline. I could see that. Guardians, 82.5. I like the over for that one. I don't care that they lost people. I care that they lost Naylor. Don't care that they lost what's his face? Andres Jimenez.
Yeah,
don't care. I think they know what they're doing with Racchio and then their other guy. I think they have some young people, and that's why they made that trade. I don't love that team. Definitely not a World Series team, right? But 82.5, you can do that. And then last team I have the Giants. 79.5. They did not get to use Jung Ho Lee last year, really. Got hurt immediately. Robbie Ray is going to be on this team. That is a plus. You still have Logan Webb. You have the best defensive catcher in baseball, and he's so good defensively that he might just be one of the best catchers in general. Matt Chapman and Willie Adames playing the corner infield. That's going to be a vacuum for teams to hit into, right? Like, it's just not going to work over there. And I still like just, all those pieces I mentioned before. I think they could be solid. 79.5 feels low. I think they have a nice first year with new leadership with Buster Posey and whatnot. So yeah, I'm high on everybody except the Padres apparently. But
wow,
it's been a tough offseason, man. What can I say?
Outside the D-backs, I actually think it would be smart if we just took the unders on most of those NL teams, because I think the NL is just going to be so loaded next year that just might cannibalize each other, because like the teams that did make the postseason last year, like we both expect the Cubs to be better. I think the Reds are probably going to be a little bit better, right? The Brewers always just kind of lurking. We both think the Giants are going to be a better team. So there's at least like maybe the Pirates a little bit better too, with a full season of Paul Skeens and Jared Jones. And like you said, if O'Neal Cruz takes that leap, like there's just more teams that could at least be intriguing on like that Kansas City, like Detroit Tigers level from last season in the National League that we didn't see. So I just think the National League, like I'll just take the under on so many of those teams, just because I think it's going to be so loaded. Outside the Dodgers, I don't know. I don't know if we like the Dodgers might be the only 90+ win team next season, just because the NL might be so tough. There's not going to be many teams outside like the Rockies and like the Marlins they could get like kind of easy victories off of, I guess. Not too many Chicago White Sox in the NL. I'll say that. So
true. Absolutely true.
Yeah, so that is kind of our FanDuel odds podcast. 1 month away, MVP, World Series, Cy Young, D-backs again disrespected, Padres are getting all the love, and of course the Dodgers are the favorites and everything. Javi, where can the listeners find you online?
Check me out on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javapeno, JAVIIPENO. Look, man, new social media. Always got to be there just in case. You never know. And also, frankly, I just like some peace every now and then. And some people that are important to Padres Twitter on there. So it's almost like console wars, where like you kind of have to have one to get your exclusives and whatnot. It's so dumb. God, we have such a weird world. So go check out on there, and then go check out Just Baseball, where I'm working on the newsletter and writing some articles, including going to do a power rankings, because it's been a while since I've done a silly thing. Power ranking the most miserable moments of the offseason. So that should be really fun.
Okay, I thought it was gonna be positive. I was like, a little teaser of the D-backs might be, but I don't.
I kind of want to write about the D-backs, honestly. I might find out an angle.
Yeah, do it. I don't think they'll be on the most sad moments of the offseason.
No, yeah, you guys have been thrilled.
Yeah.
You guys got Corbin Burns out of nowhere on a Friday night.
Oh, that was very nice. I did like that a lot. For the listeners, for Millard Thomas, if you want to follow me online, I Creator Thomas 24 for the personal account on Twitter. Of course, we're not going anywhere. Or look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. And please stream Locked On D-backs, Locked On Padres on all podcast platforms. And please hit subscribe to Locked On D-backs, Locked On Diamondbacks, at least I should say, and Locked On Padres on YouTube. Javi, until next time, off season we'll be doing a whole lot of crossovers. Till I see you next time, buddy. Doses.